Toorak mansions are built of hawthorn brick and heavy slate, designed to endure for centuries, but the prestigious families living inside them can fall completely apart in a single, devastating afternoon. Sarah always believed the thick walls of her childhood home were her ultimate protection. She had no idea her own brother had already signed the demolition permit. It was a Tuesday, the kind of quiet, leafy Melbourne afternoon where the only sound is the distant, rhythmic hum of a gardener's leaf blower drifting over the manicured hedges. Sarah had only been gone for 45 minutes to buy groceries and collect her mother's heart medication. Just 45 minutes. She turned the corner onto her street, the heavy plastic bags cutting deep, painful grooves into her fingers. Her mind was entirely occupied with the mundane, invisible details of full-time caretaking. The strict schedule of pills, the afternoon ritual of Earl Grey tea, making sure 88-year-old Muriel was warm enough in the drafty back wing of the massive house. Then she saw it, hammered ruthlessly into the center of the front lawn, casting a long, sharp shadow over the heritage rose garden she had tended with her own bare hands. A massive, pristine real estate sign bearing the logo of a high-end agency. The bold black letters screamed the words, "For sale." The house was not just on the market, it was already sold. For 8 long years, Sarah had sacrificed every fragment of her own life to keep her mother safe. At 62, she had given up her career as a primary school teacher, surrendered her independence, and moved back into the isolated, echoing rooms of the Victorian home. It was unpaid, unglamorous, exhausting labor, but it was born of profound, unquestioning love. Scene 1. The Hook Line 1 image, wide angle, grand Victorian mansion in Toorak, made of dark brown hawthorn brick and a heavy slate roof. The property is surrounded by mature trees with late afternoon sunlight casting long, quiet shadows. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,099 free, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 2, image, close up. A 62-year-old woman walking down a leafy, affluent suburban street, carrying heavy plastic grocery bags. The background is slightly blurred, showing manicured hedges and a distant gardener holding a leaf blower. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009 or no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 3, image, close up on the plastic bag handles digging deep into the woman's worn fingers. Soft, warm afternoon lighting highlighting the physical tension in her hands. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 4, image, low angle, a massive, pristine real estate sign hammered into the center of a lush heritage rose garden. The sign casts a long, sharp, imposing shadow over the grass. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009 or 80. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 5, image, duplicate candidate. Reuse image from line 4 with a tighter close-up on a sold sticker placed over the sign, using a slightly lower camera angle. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Scene 2. The bath story. Line 6, image, a 62-year-old woman looking exhausted but devoted, gently pouring tea in a dimly lit ornate Victorian kitchen featuring rich, dark timber floors. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,099, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 7, image, a 55-year-old man in a sharp, expensive tailored suit, standing in a stark, brutalist apartment in South Yarra, featuring an unadorned concrete wall and heavily speckled polished concrete floors. He looks coldly out a large window. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009 no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 8, image, the 55-year-old man sweeping through a high-ceilinged, timber-floored hallway, looking impatient and glancing at an expensive watch while holding a single cup of black coffee. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 9, image, the 62-year-old woman sitting at a rustic kitchen table late at night, illuminated by a single warm lamp, anxiously organizing a meticulous handwritten ledger and various utility bills. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,999. Text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 10 image. An 88-year-old woman with white hair sitting in a drafty Victorian back room, looking toward the camera with polite, terrifying confusion. The younger woman stands protectively behind her chair in the shadows. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 11 image. The man in the tailored suit, standing on the sweeping driveway of the mansion, looking at the massive block of land and heritage architecture with a calculating, greedy expression. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 12 image. The 62-year-old woman collapsed on a faded velvet sofa, rubbing her temples, appearing completely physically and emotionally drained in the dim, echoing rooms of the Victorian home. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 13 image. The man leaning over a formal dining table, speaking forcefully. The 88-year-old woman looks confused, while the sister stands in the background, looking physically drained and subtly undermined. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 14 image. The 62-year-old woman standing alone in a grand shadowed hallway of the mansion, hugging her arms as if feeling a sudden, inexplicable chill. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 15 image. The man placing a thick stack of complex legal paperwork onto a polished mahogany dining table. The elderly mother sits across from him. The lighting is focused heavily on the documents. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 16 image. Close-up of an 88-year-old trembling hand holding a heavy fountain pen, pressing it down onto the dotted line of a legal document. The man's polished silver cuff is visible resting on the table nearby. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 17 image. The man slipping the stamped legal documents into a sleek, expensive leather briefcase, smiling with perfectly white teeth but dead, calculating eyes. The sister stands in the kitchen doorway in the blurred background. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 18 image. Duplicate, candidate, reuse image from line 17 with a tighter focus on the man's hands clicking the brass locks of the leather briefcase shut. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, scene 3 red flags, line 19, image. The 62-year-old woman quietly watering the heritage rose garden in serene morning light. The scene looks peaceful, but a heavy, ominous shadow falls across the grass in the foreground. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 20 image. An older, conservative solicitor sitting in a dark, wood-paneled office on a rainy day, holding a desk phone to his ear with an expression of deep professional concern. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 21 image. Duplicate sand. Candidate, reuse image from line 20 with a closer shot of the solicitor looking down at a property title document on his desk, his brow heavily furrowed. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 22 image. The 55-year-old man leaning back in a minimalist leather chair in his sterile concrete South Yarra apartment, laughing into his smartphone, exuding arrogant confidence. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 23 image. The woman standing in her kitchen holding a slightly misplaced utility bill, looking deeply confused and visibly doubting herself. The lighting casts isolating shadows around her. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 24 image. The elderly mother looking at her daughter with suspicious, cloudy eyes. The daughter is desperately holding up her handwritten ledger, trying to explain the numbers. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 25 image. The woman lying awake in bed at night, staring blankly at the ornate Victorian ceiling. The room is dark, illuminated only by a single sliver of moonlight, capturing her crushing isolation. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 26 image. Duplicate candidate, reuse image from line 25 with a wider angle, showing the vast emptiness of the dark, decaying bedroom around her small, vulnerable figure. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 27 image. The woman standing at a bank teller's counter. The teller leans in, speaking with a cold, formal expression. The bank environment is sterile and bureaucratic. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 28. Image, a close-up of a sleek, anonymous, metallic post office box in a modern facility. Bold, artificial lighting reflects off the metal surface. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9 text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 29 image. A cold sweat breaking across the woman's neck. Close-up of her panicked, trembling fingers typing frantically on a laptop keyboard in the dim light of the mansion's study. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,990, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm line 30 image. A glowing laptop screen in a dark room showing a stark red, access denied error message. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,099, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 31 image. The 55-year-old man standing casually in the Victorian kitchen, adjusting the heavy silver cuffs of his tailored shirt, appearing completely unbothered and emotionally cold. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,099, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 32 image. Extreme close-up of the man's dead, calculating eyes as he looks directly ahead, lying with chilling perfection. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,900, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Scene 4, the investigation line 33 image. The 55-year-old man sitting alone in his stark concrete apartment, head in his hands, illuminated by the harsh blue light of a laptop showing plummeting stock charts and red margin calls. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,099, text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm line 34 image. The 62-year-old woman at 3 in the morning, illuminated only by the harsh yellow glow of a desk lamp, frantically digging through old, locked filing cabinets in a dusty study. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 35, image. Close-up of an old, faded tax return document with a handwritten list of account numbers attached to the back, illuminated by a warm, intense desk lamp. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 36 image. The woman sitting in a small glass-walled bank manager's office, tearfully sliding her birth certificate and identification across the desk to a sighing bank manager. Style, cinematic photorealistic. Not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 37 image. A close-up of a bank computer screen showing a $0 balance, reflecting faintly in the woman's stunned, tear-filled eyes. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. Text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 38 image. Duplicate candidate, reuse image from line 37, with a slow push in on the woman's devastated, shocked expression. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,900. Anywhere, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 39 image. An ATM screen showing a maximum daily cash withdrawal receipt printing out into the tray in the dead of night. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 40 image. The woman holding her smartphone, the screen showing a tight cluster of red map pins forming a geographic circle over a city map. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 41 image. The man in a panic state in his brutalist apartment, surrounded by final notice bills and aggressive legal letters. The sleek facade of his life is visibly crumbling. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 42 image. Duplicate candidate, reuse image from line 41 with a closer shot of the final notice. Documents scattered on the polished concrete floor. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 43 image. The woman gripping the steering wheel of her car, her knuckles white, driving frantically, her heart hammering against her ribs, expression full of terrified urgency. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 44 image. A car's tires screeching violently on the heritage pavement of a sweeping, tree-lined driveway, the vehicle braking hard in front of the Victorian mansion. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,998. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 45 image. The massive real estate sign hammered deep into the grass, now completely dominating the front lawn, shot from a low, imposing angle against the mansion. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, scene 5. The climax, line 46 image. The 62-year-old woman stumbling out of her car on the front lawn, gasping for air, paralyzed as she stares up at the grand Victorian facade of her childhood home. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,009. Mid-year, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 47 image. Duplicate candidate, reuse image from line 46 with a wider angle emphasizing her small, vulnerable figure standing alone against the massive, looming architecture. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,900. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 48 image. A sleek, black European car parked in the driveway. The 55-year-old man and a luxury property developer holding a thick clipboard are laughing casually together. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16,909. Sex or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 49 image. The woman running toward the men, her expression shattered and desperate. The man's smile vanishes into a mask of cold annoyance as he turns to face her. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 50 image. The man reaching into his tailored jacket, his expression completely devoid of human emotion, handing his sister a single sheet of paper printed on expensive legal letterhead. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16999. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 51 image. Close-up of the formal, legally binding eviction notice in a trembling hand. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 52 image. The man speaking with terrifying calm, towering slightly over his sister. The developer steps back in the blurred background, looking deeply uncomfortable. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 53 image. The man turning his back and walking away toward his luxury car, slipping his hands into his pockets, completely discarding the woman left standing on the lawn. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16091. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 54 image. The 62-year-old woman falling to her knees in the dark living room, openly sobbing. The 88-year-old mother sits in her armchair, gently patting her daughter's hair with a blank expression. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 169. In the eyes. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 55 image. Duplicates candidate, reuse image from line 54 with a close-up on the mother's gently smiling, blissfully unaware face as she comforts her broken daughter. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 56 image. A shadowy, metaphorical image of a heavy legal document lying across the lap of the vulnerable elderly mother, representing the dark weaponization of her condition. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 57 image. The 62-year-old woman sitting alone in the dark kitchen, her hands shaking violently. The formal eviction notice lies flat on the cold marble counter in front of her. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 58 image. Close-up of the woman's face in the dark kitchen, her eyes wide with crushing self-doubt and trauma, illuminated by a single cold shaft of moonlight. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, scene 6. The fallout, line 59 image. The 62-year-old woman's expression slowly hardening. The tears have stopped, replaced by a cold, quiet, and dangerous determination in her eyes. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 60 image. The woman walking out to the heritage fence to collect the mail. Wealthy neighbors in the background are pointedly looking away and whispering to each other. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 61 image. The extended family members gathered around the 55-year-old man in a high-end restaurant, smiling and toasting his success, entirely believing his false narrative. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 16999. Text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 62 image. The woman physically barring the heavy timber front doors of the mansion, sitting alone in the dark hallway, is aggressive. Faceless silhouettes bang on the frosted glass outside. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio 1699. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow, warm, line 63 image. The man signing the lease on a brand new luxury sports car in a brightly lit, high-end dealership, desperately keeping up his crumbling charade of wealth. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 64 image. The man looking arrogant and entirely self-assured as he straightens his tie in a mirror, severely underestimating the threat his sister poses. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 65 image. Duplicate candidate. Reuse image from line 59 with a tighter crop on the woman's hardened, cornered animal stare. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:1009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 66 image. The woman walking confidently into the towering modern glass offices of a high-stakes litigator. She carries a thick, heavy file of forensic bank records. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,990p. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 67 image. A sharp-suited lawyer sitting at a polished mahogany desk, looking up in sheer shock as he reviews the blatant, illegal conflict transactions in the paperwork. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 68 image. A close-up of an urgent electronic legal caveat document being officially stamped, symbolizing the multi-million-dollar sale being instantly frozen. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9:8. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Scene 7 resolution. Line 69 image. A heavy steel trap violently snapping shut in a metaphorical, dimly lit environment, symbolizing the legal freeze catching the betrayer. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 70 image. The 55-year-old man looking absolutely furious, holding a statutory lapsing notice in his South Yarra apartment, his face red with uncontrolled rage. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 71 image. An austere, heavy timber-lined courtroom. The man stands in the center, his expensive tailored suit suddenly looking too big as he desperately tries to charm the room. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 72 image. A stern judge looking down from the bench with absolute disgust, completely ignoring the man's charm while reading a devastating financial forensic report. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. Text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 73 image. Secret ATM withdrawal receipts and coerced legal documents scattered mercilessly under the blinding, unforgiving light of the courtroom desk. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 74 image. The judge's wooden gavel falling heavily. The luxury developer is seen quickly walking out the courtroom doors in the blurred background, fleeing the voided deal. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009 mini-row. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 75 image. Two police officers stepping forward in the courtroom to speak with the man. He looks completely destroyed and deeply panicked. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 76 image. The 62-year-old woman walking up the sweeping driveway of the mansion, grabbing the massive real estate sign with her bare hands and violently ripping it out of the earth. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,099. No text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Line 77 image. The elderly mother sitting peacefully in the drafty back wing of the heritage home, completely safe and entirely unaware of the brutal war fought for her survival. Style, cinematic photorealistic. Not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,099, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 7-8 image, the woman standing in the grand empty hallway of the mansion. The house is saved, but the atmosphere is deeply hollow and permanently fractured. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,999, text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 79 image, the woman pouring 2 cups of Earl Grey tea in the kitchen. She takes a deep, grounding breath. The light is warm, soft, and peaceful for the first time in months. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16,009, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm, line 80 image, close-up of the woman's face, showing hard-won quiet strength and resilience. She is alone, but she is unbreakable. Style, cinematic photorealistic, not cartoon, not anime. Aspect ratio, 16:9:9, no text or watermarks. Mood, soft shadow warm. Julian never offered to help with the daily, grinding reality of care. At 55, her younger brother was a high-flying stockbroker who lived in a stark, concrete facade apartment in South Yarra. He viewed the world entirely through the cold, calculated lens of profit margins, quarterly returns, and liquid assets. To him, the family's history was just an underperforming, depreciating asset. He visited the Toorak house exactly once a month. He would sweep through the ornate, timber-floored hallways smelling of expensive cologne, fresh dry cleaning, and barely concealed impatience. He would kiss their mother on the cheek, drink a single cup of black coffee, and leave long before the conversation could turn to medical bills, physical therapy, or the reality of aging. Sarah never asked him for money. She managed the entire household on Muriel's modest pension, stretching every single dollar to cover the soaring utility bills of a home built in the 1880s. She trusted Julian implicitly with the broader financial picture. He was the expert, he was blood, he was family. Muriel's memory had become incredibly fluid over the last 2 years. Some days she was sharply lucid, recalling the exact placement of a crystal vase in 1970. Other days she would look at Sarah with polite, terrifying confusion, asking when her husband was coming home. Sarah fiercely protected her mother from the outside world during those dark, baiting moments. But Julian saw his mother's declining cognitive state not as a deeply human tragedy, but as a strategic opening, a rare opportunity. He knew that the massive block of land beneath the aging mansion was worth millions of dollars to the right luxury developer. He also knew that Sarah, chronically exhausted and deeply isolated, was far too buried in the daily trauma of caregiving to notice the sophisticated legal trap being set right in front of her. It began with small, seemingly helpful suggestions that masked a darker intent. Julian insisted that Sarah was looking dangerously tired. He told Muriel, speaking loudly right in front of Sarah, that the massive house was becoming a physical and financial burden. He planted tiny, toxic seeds of doubt about Sarah's ability to manage the household too. Sarah felt a subtle, undeniable shift in the atmosphere, a sudden, inexplicable chill sweeping through the grand hallways. Then came the day Julian brought the thick stack of legal paperwork. He casually claimed it was just standard administrative updates for the family trust, something to ensure the taxes were filed correctly and to protect their mother's pension. He isolated Muriel in the formal dining room while Sarah was busy preparing lunch in the kitchen. He placed the heavy fountain pen directly into his mother's trembling hand. He pointed to the dotted line. He spoke in that smooth, authoritative, hypnotic voice that had closed millions of dollars in corporate deals. Muriel signed the enduring power of attorney without reading a single devastating word. She simply trusted her son. Sarah walked into the room just as the heavily stamped documents were being slipped into a sleek leather briefcase. Julian smiled, his teeth perfectly white, his eyes completely dead, telling her he was finally taking the burden off her shoulders. That was the exact moment her fate was sealed. For the next 6 months, the delicate illusion of peace remained perfectly intact. The daily routine continued without interruption. The tea was poured, the medications were sorted, the garden was watered, but the legal ground beneath Sarah's feet had already been entirely stripped away. The first real red flag did not come from Julian. It came from Dr. Aris, the deeply conservative, long-term family solicitor who had managed their affairs for 3 decades. He called the house on a rainy Thursday morning, his voice thick with uncharacteristic hesitation and professional concern. He asked Sarah if she was fully aware of the recent highly unusual document requests regarding the property title. He sounded deeply puzzled. When Sarah expressed genuine confusion, the line went dead silent for 5 agonizing seconds. Dr. Aris muttered a quick apology, citing client confidentiality, and abruptly hung up. Sarah immediately called Julian. He laughed it off instantly, a rich, booming laugh that echoed through his sterile South Yarra apartment. He told her the old lawyer was simply losing his touch, getting confused by modern, standard tax optimization strategies. He told her she was overreacting, projecting her own stress. Gaslighting is rarely loud or explosive. It is a slow, methodical, invisible rewriting of your entire reality. Julian began calling more frequently, but only to point out Sarah's minor human mistakes. A slightly missed doctor's appointment, a misplaced utility bill. He was carefully building a documented narrative, a narrative where Sarah was fundamentally unstable. Muriel began to blindly parrot Julian's words. She would look at Sarah with suspicious, cloudy eyes and ask why the bank accounts were always so low. Sarah would desperately show her the meticulous handwritten ledger she kept, but the numbers no longer made any sense to the aging matriarch. The isolation began to violently crush Sarah. She actively questioned her own memory. She lay awake at night wondering if she really was failing the mother she had given up everything to protect. Every time Julian visited, he looked more pristine, more in control, while she felt herself dissolving into the background of the decaying mansion. She was completely alone in the dark. Then, the letters simply stopped arriving. The Daily Mail, usually full of routine bank statements, council rates, and utility bills, suddenly dried up completely. When Sarah finally drove to the local bank branch to ask for a replacement statement, the teller's voice dropped to a cold, formal whisper. The teller informed her that the mailing address had been officially changed 2 months prior by the legally authorized power of attorney. All financial correspondence, every single piece of mail, was now being routed directly to a private, anonymous post office box in South Yarra. A cold sweat broke across Sarah's neck. The disjointed pieces were rapidly shifting, forming a picture so grotesque her mind instinctively tried to reject it. She rushed home and pulled up the family accounts online, typing in the familiar password with trembling, panicked fingers. Access denied. The password had been completely changed. She confronted Julian the very next day. He stood in her kitchen, completely unbothered, calmly adjusting the heavy silver cuffs of his tailored shirt. He told her that her severe financial mismanagement was threatening their mother's future, and he had legally taken control to protect the family legacy. He looked his sister directly in the eyes and lied with absolute chilling perfection. What he didn't tell her, what nobody in their elite Toorak social circle could have possibly guessed, was that Julian wasn't protecting the money at all. He was desperately, blindly running from his own total financial ruin. Sarah could not sleep. The silence of the mansion, once deeply comforting, now felt like a physical, suffocating threat. She began systematically digging through the old, locked filing cabinets in her late father's abandoned study, frantically searching for any shred of paper that could explain the sudden darkness closing in around her. At 3 in the morning, illuminated only by the harsh, yellow glow of a desk lamp, she found an old, faded tax return from a decade ago. Attached to the back was a handwritten list of account numbers. One of them was completely unfamiliar. The secondary high-yield account Muriel had opened decades ago, meant strictly for extreme medical emergencies. The next morning, Sarah drove straight to the bank's regional headquarters. She sat in a small glass-walled office and practically begged the manager, providing her own identification, her birth certificate, and tearfully explaining her mother's rapidly declining cognitive state. After 30 minutes of agonizing bureaucracy, the manager sighed and turned his screen toward her. The emergency account was entirely, utterly empty. What she was about to find would completely destroy everything she thought she knew. The zero balance wasn't the true nightmare. It was the transaction history. For 3 entire years, long before the enduring power of attorney was officially signed in the dining room, someone had been making maximum daily cash withdrawals from suburban ATMs, thousands of dollars, bleeding out into the ether, day after day, month after month. Sarah traced the ATM locations using her phone. They formed a tight, undeniable geographic circle. Every single withdrawal, spanning 36 months, had occurred within a 3-block radius of Julian's luxury, concrete Fosgate apartment building in South Yarra. He had secretly ordered a secondary card. He had been systematically stealing from their mother for years. The sickening, impossible truth washed over her. Julian's high-flying, elite stockbroker lifestyle was a complete and total fabrication. His investments had catastrophically failed. He was drowning in aggressive margin calls and hidden toxic debt. Muriel's emergency fund was the only thing keeping him out of personal bankruptcy, and now the emergency fund was gone, drained to the last cent, which meant Julian desperately needed a much larger, immediate source of cash to survive his creditors. Sarah raced back to the house, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She needed to warn Muriel. She needed to call Dr. Aris and demand he intervene. She needed to somehow secure the property title before Julian could do the unthinkable. But when she turned onto the sweeping driveway, her tires screeching violently against the heritage pavement, she hit the brakes so hard she was violently thrown against the steering wheel. Gasping for breath, the massive real estate sign was already hammered deep into the grass. It was too late. He had already pulled the trigger. Sarah stumbled out of the car, gasping for air as if the atmosphere itself had been instantly sucked out of the prestigious street. She stood on the front lawn, paralyzed, staring up at the grand Victorian facade, the house she had traded the best years of her life to lovingly maintain. A sleek black European car was parked in the driveway. Julian stepped out, flanked by a man holding a thick clipboard, a luxury property developer. They were laughing, a casual, easy, arrogant laugh between wealthy men who had just closed a highly profitable off-market, multi-million-dollar deal. Sarah ran toward them, her voice cracking, completely shattering the serene silence of the neighborhood as she screamed his name. Julian turned, his smile vanishing instantly into a mask of cold annoyance. The developer looked away, deeply uncomfortable, stepping back to let the family bloodbath unfold on the lawn. Yes, Julian didn't yell. He didn't defend himself. He didn't offer a single word of apology. He simply reached into his tailored jacket and handed Sarah a single sheet of paper. It was a formal, legally binding eviction notice, printed on expensive legal letterhead, signed by him, acting as their mother's sole legal attorney. She had exactly 30 days to vacate the premises. "Mother needs a much higher standard of care," Julian said, his voice terrifyingly calm, devoid of any human emotion. "The house is simply too much for you to handle. I've sold it to fund the luxury care facility for her. You can easily find a small rental for yourself. It's for the best." He was entirely erasing her, discarding 8 years of grueling, unpaid labor with a single stroke of a pen, pocketing the massive multi-million-dollar surplus from the developer to quietly bury his own catastrophic financial debts. Sarah pushed violently past him, running into the dark house to find her mother. Muriel was sitting in her favorite armchair, staring blankly at the television. When Sarah fell to her knees, openly sobbing, begging to know why she signed the papers, Muriel just gently patted her daughter's hair. "Don't cry, sweetheart," Muriel whispered, her mind drifting somewhere in the safe, distant comfort of the 1980s. "Julian said he's taking care of everything for us." Tuh! The betrayal was absolute, touching the very bottom of the human soul. It wasn't just the theft of the physical house, it was the calculated weaponization of their mother's dementia. Julian had used the vulnerable woman Sarah loved more than anything to utterly destroy her. Her hands would not stop shaking, vibrating with a terrifying adrenaline. Even hours after Julian left, her body violently rejected the reality of the trauma. She sat alone in the dark kitchen, the formal eviction notice lying flat on the cold marble counter. Did she cause this? Had she been too blind, too trusting, too pathetic to see the monster wearing her brother's face? The crushing self-doubt threatened to drag her under completely. She was totally, utterly broken. And then slowly the grief hardened into something else entirely. The social fallout was incredibly swift and totally unforgiving. Word spreads like a highly contagious virus through the elite, whispering circles of Toorak. Neighbors who had smiled over the heritage fences for decades suddenly looked away when Sarah walked out to collect the mail. Extended family members took sides immediately. Almost all of them chose Julian. He was visibly wealthy, successful, and had a plausible, legally airtight narrative. Sarah was quickly painted as the unstable, bitter, exhausted spinster sister who simply couldn't handle the reality of her mother's declining health. Aggressive real estate agents began showing up at the door, demanding entry to measure the ornate rooms for the impending, brutal demolition. Sarah physically barred the heavy timber doors, sitting alone in the dark hallway as entitled strangers banged on the glass, demanding what they had paid for. She had 20 days left. Her personal bank accounts were nearly drained from years of subsidizing the house. Julian brutally refused to take her calls. He was already spending the massive non-refundable deposit money, securing a new lease on a luxury car to keep up his desperate, crumbling charade of success. But Julian had made one fatal, arrogant miscalculation. He assumed Sarah would quietly, dutifully surrender. He assumed her deep, unending love for their mother made her inherently weak. He forgot that a cornered animal is the most dangerous thing in the world. Sarah walked into the towering glass offices of a brutal, high-stakes property litigator in the city center. She didn't cry. She didn't seek a single ounce of sympathy. She slammed the forensic bank records, the hidden ATM transactions, and the forced EPOA documents onto the polished mahogany desk. The lawyer took exactly one look at the paperwork. He saw the blatant, illegal conflict transactions. He saw the undeniable, heavily documented pattern of elder financial abuse that judges utterly despise. "Hanks, sir?" Before the sun set that afternoon, an urgent electronic caveat was hammered onto the title of the Toorak property via the Supreme Court. The multi-million-dollar sale was instantly, legally frozen. The trap had violently snapped shut. The statutory lapsing notice arrived 48 hours later. Julian was absolutely furious, legally demanding the immediate removal of the caveat so his funds could clear. But Sarah didn't flinch. She had 30 days to file for a Supreme Court injunction. She filed on day 3. The injunction hearing was an absolute bloodbath. Julian stood in the austere, heavy, timber-lined courtroom, his expensive, tailored suit suddenly looking 2 sizes too big. He desperately tried to deploy his usual corporate charm, spinning a pathetic tale of a devoted son protecting an incompetent sister. The Supreme Court judge didn't even look up from the devastating financial forensic report, the secret ATM withdrawals, the coerced, unwitnessed signature, the blatant use of the enduring power of attorney to clear personal margin calls. Every dark, desperate secret Julian had hidden behind his concrete South Yarra walls was dragged mercilessly into the blinding, unforgiving light of the public record. The gavel fell with the crushing weight of a collapsing building. Julian was immediately stripped of the power of attorney. The property sale was declared legally void due to unconscionable conduct. The luxury developer instantly fled the deal, leaving Julian entirely exposed to his furious creditors. Furthermore, the court ordered a full, immediate police investigation into the 3 years of missing cash. Julian walked out of the courtroom facing potential imprisonment for criminal fraud. He didn't even dare look at his sister as he passed her. Sarah drove back to Toorak. She walked up the sweeping driveway, pulled the massive real estate sign out of the earth with her own 2 bare hands, and threw it violently into the street. The house was safe. Muriel would spend her final, fading days in the only home she remembered, completely unaware of the brutal, terrifying war that had been waged for her survival. But the victory was deeply, permanently hollow. The family was dead. Julian was a ghost, a name never to be spoken again within those hawthorn brick walls. The law had saved the house, but it could never repair the trust. Sarah poured 2 cups of Earl Grey tea. She carried them into the drafty back wing, sat beside her mother, and finally, for the first time in months, allowed herself to breathe. They took everything she had built. She built it again without them.